but and they're pretty battle worn, most of them, by now, because they've been in storms and they've been in all kinds of situations. Richard and I were living by then. We didn't have our apartment in New York that was big before. Well, then we were just with a little tiny studio apartment. And I'm telling you that what it was is it once was a hotel. So it was the size of a hotel room, a city hotel room. It was just a hotel room. with a little kitchenette kind of built skinny along the wall, and that was it. And we used to laugh because our bed was a fold-out couch, and so we could open up the icebox with our toes for breakfast in bed. And we used to joke about it. But anyway, so we were living there, and Richard had to walk into the entrance sideways because it was so narrow, the passage to get into the actual room. So I was perfectly happy there. I loved it. I was never unhappy. It was so great. And just to be in New York with no cares, nothing, not all of this was gone. So, but one time I realized we had no money when I didn't even have any change. I had nothing. I couldn't even buy a toothpaste tube. And I thought, what do people do when they need a new toothpaste tube? It was the first time I absolutely had no money at all. So I just started thinking, I know, I will sell my clothes, because I noticed this is before there were secondhand stores everywhere. It was just consignment shops on the Upper East Side at the time. But most things they wouldn't take. I went upstate to Ithaca. I thought, oh, well, they're not going to care so much whether it was last year's fashion from Gucci or not, upstate, if it's well made. And a lot of the things were things I'd made myself and were really beautiful and well made. And every time I would walk on the streets, people would stop me and compliment me. I'm not so fashionable anymore, but I guess I was more striking then, when I was more conscious of what I had time to change my clothes and think of what could be a pretty combination. But now I just don't have time at all, and so I just kind of am whatever I am each day, sometimes for weeks on end. But so I thought, oh, well, people will love these things. So in Ithaca, I was so shocked. I went into a secondhand store, and the girl looked through my things, and she was holding up a blouse of mine, and she said, collars are out of style. People don't wear collars. And I said, oh. And all of a sudden I felt so small. Here was this girl, dressed in a t-shirt, looking to me like something, not really thinking about what she had on it at all, but she had this very strict rule about what they could take and what they couldn't, and what was fashionable and what wasn't. So I took it all back, and I was starting to get, one day, I made one more try in New York, and on the way back, it started to pour rain, and I went up to our apartment, and I was just so sad. It was really hard, and I was on the floor, and we had just got Pinkie at that time, the smaller dog of the two wire-haired dachshunds. We had Mr. Brown already, and then Pinkie. And Mr. Brown took Pinkie's toy from her, and then she went and got another toy. And Mr. Brown took that toy from her. And then she went and got another toy. And Mr. Brown took that toy too. And I was just about to scold Mr. Brown, and I'm so glad I didn't. Because Pinkie didn't get another toy. There were no more toys. So she played with the air She jumped up. She was a puppy. She would jump up and just spin around and bite the air, and roll on her back and get back up and bite the air again. And I learned a lesson from Pinkie that very moment. I thought, if everything's taken from you, you need to play with the air. Just play with what is there. And don't be sad because you don't have the things anymore. And I just never forget that lesson. I haven't thought of it until just now, telling you this story. And so I looked at these open suitcases of now damp clothes. And I thought, I'm going to make these into cushions and sell the cushions. And some of the cushions, not the ones I have here, they were sold for $400 a piece. I couldn't have sold the whole lot of clothes for that. And they just were all from the inspiration of Pinkie, playing with the air. Just what was there. And this is why I can't abide thought that talks about not, that you're vulnerable or you're a victim of a wrong thing. But look, if you go beyond that, that's where the strength that you naturally have comes forth. And who wins? You win. It's not that you're beating somebody else, but you're winning. You're winning against circumstances that seem to be real, but they're actually only opportunities. So that's why I have a very strong feeling about things like that. And then so I encased it in plastic. But see, now this might look, kind of normal now, but nobody would have done anything like this when I did these. And now people are doing these things, and it's great. Everybody's liberated. It's just amazing. But here's another one with gloves. It's just such a mess. It's being in the rain and everything. But the leather gloves, which were beautiful, evening gloves, are now all shrunken and crunchy. These were, kid gloves. This was a kid glove. And this has gotten eaten by moths because it was wool. And this is a synthetic glove. And you know where these gloves came from? Aunt Marion passed away. And I went to her apartment because I was the only one in New York to clean it out. And she had a drawer full of gloves. I mean, I would never have had all these gloves. And I took them home thinking, Whittaker could play dress up with them someday or something. And so I had all these gloves. And this is a silk slip. It was a beautiful silk slip. And all these things just fitting together in ways no one would ever have understood. But they just started to really appreciate it, and it filled the need for a while. Just ridiculously odd things, all stitched together, and just making something wonderful. I wish somebody owned these that took care of them. Everything that we have gets ruined, but anyway. So it was really fun because it was a real work around the decorators, because they didn't know what to do with this kind of thing. They didn't know how to place it, what to do. And it just started to liberate this childlike independence that the customer really owned but didn't know it. So it really turned the scenes around the way they should be, where the customer is the one who knows what their home expression is. And the decorator may just help them to purchase things, or to do some physical things that they don't have the talent, maybe a certain kind of treatment or whatever. So after we didn't have Mackenzie Childs anymore, we were trying to find some kind of work. And we had never worked for anybody else before, but we thought, well, we could do this. And told us about a man who was up in New York, who needed, he had the resources, he had a company in India that was making fabrics, but he didn't have design. And this man said, you two would be able to lift his whole collection and make it really wonderful. So we thought, well, gosh, we could be helping him. We'd be helping ourselves, and we can change the world, but we started making the most fun things. One I really loved was, when you use your bed kind of like your office, sometimes you'll sit up in bed and you'll have your reading materials, you'll have your notebook, you'll have your phone, just everything all around, and magazines that you're in the middle of reading, or books, or knitting, or like I do all my mending sometimes. I mean, I don't now, but when I lived in a normal situation, I would sometimes do that. And so this duvet cover, or coverlet, was all made of pockets, all kinds of pockets, where you could put your things away and get them out, dig them out the next morning or the next night, and finish the next chapter in your book. Or so this quilt was like a grown-up busy box. Anyway, we were having so much fun making all these amazing things for this man. I mean, I can't tell you. That was just one example. But even completely different things. And he didn't get it. He didn't get any of it. And it was all different than what we had done at Mackenzie Childs, because we were working with his materials and we were wanting to go forward. We never were wanting to copy ourselves. And so he took us into his office and he opened up his computer and he said, can't you make something like this? Like the Hamptons? And he opened up a photo of one of our cushions. What is very telling, it became so popular that it became the, it became the fashion. It became the style of the times. So it was made originally as a resistance to any time and to everything that anybody had ever known. And it was kind of a joke. And then he's calling it something normal, like from the Hamptons, like this. And it was one of our cushions, and he didn't know it. He didn't know it was one of our cushions. So that was really fun. So there's the end, a funny end to the story. And we lost our job as designers for this man.